The Church of England is in crisis after a series of abuse scandals. Tonight we reveal a shocking new development which raises serious questions about the conduct of a senior serving bishop and fresh allegations of a cover-up by the man currently leading the church. Channel 4 News understands that John Parumbalath, the bishop here in Liverpool, was accused of sexually harassing a senior female clergywoman, and it wasn't the first time that allegations had been made against him.
I was deeply shocked. I was really sad, and I was very angry on behalf of the alleged victims.
Author Andrew Greystone advocates for victims of church abuse. Last summer, 2 women came to him separately with allegations against the same man, the Bishop of Liverpool.
It's really shocking because you don't expect this about a diocesan bishop in this case, and you don't expect it to be a senior cleric who has been treated in this way.
This is Dr. John Parumbalath, the man at the centre of those allegations. The clergywoman, one of 31 female bishops, informed senior clergy and then the Archbishop of York, Stephen Cottrell himself, in 2023. Then last year she also made a formal complaint, but a judge refused to allow it because more than a year had passed since the alleged harassment.
So should we speak about justice at all?
But the bishop who made the complaint was unaware that she wasn't John Parumbalath's only alleged victim. We can reveal he was accused of sexually assaulting another woman in his previous job as Bishop of Bradwell in Essex, and was interviewed voluntarily under caution by police in March last year. Well, we've spoken to the woman who reported Bishop John to the police, and she gave us this detailed written account of what she says happened. She was involved in the church in the Chelmsford diocese, and she told us that between 2019 and 2023, Bishop John repeatedly kissed her without her consent and groped her. In March 2019, at a Chelmsford diocese away day, she recalls the first alleged sexual assault.
He held me there and kissed me forcefully on my mouth, which I did not like and I did not want. I tried to move away, but he was holding my head too tightly. I could feel his mouth pressing on my mouth. I could feel some of his saliva and the texture of his beard around my mouth.
In May 2022, at the end of a meeting, she claims he groped her.
As he was letting go of hugging me, he ran his hands past the side of my breasts on both sides with a medium pressure until he reached the edge of the areola.
And in January 2023, at a music evening in the chapel, she said,
he pressed his face against my face, said, "I love you," quietly in my ear, and moved his mouth to just below my ear, on the pulse point on my neck. He opened his mouth, took a piece of my skin between his lips, and let go.
We read parts of the woman's statement to the Reverend Robert Thompson, who sits on the highest governing body of the church, the General Synod.
I mean, that's a really detailed account of what is a very serious sexual assault, and it's an allegation that would very definitely need to be investigated, and until that point, the bishop should really step back from ministry.
Physically shaking, the woman told her husband what she says happened and immediately reported Bishop John's behaviour to her local vicar, who informed the archdeacon. She was put in touch with the church's national safeguarding team. But by that point, Bishop John's promotion to the Liverpool diocese had already been confirmed by the church. I'm told that members of the committee in charge of approving Bishop John's promotion to Liverpool were unaware of a question mark over his conduct, and they're now furious they weren't told. In addition, he allegedly failed to demonstrate his competence in safeguarding and therefore couldn't secure the majority vote needed for his appointment. It's claimed Stephen Cottrell and another bishop then put pressure on some committee members to overturn that vote. It's unclear what reasons were given for Bishop John failing his safeguarding competency test, and the church disputes this version of events, saying voting is by secret ballot.
If there are allegations that pressure was put on the Crown Nominations Committee because there was, for example, evidence before the committee that there were safeguarding issues around any particular bishop, and the Archbishop in question in relation to that area put pressure on those members, that is something that really is very serious indeed, and something which would really need to be investigated.
Just weeks after he stepped in to lead the Church of England following Justin Welby's unprecedented resignation, these disturbing allegations raise fresh concerns too about Archbishop Stephen's own fitness for office. Stephen Cottrell and John Perumbalath were both bishops together in the Chelmsford diocese. And we can disclose that Archbishop Stephen knew of the sexual assault allegations after Bishop John had been promoted, but before he was enthroned in Liverpool in April 2023. In a letter the month before to Bishop John's alleged assault victim, Archbishop Stephen said of John Perumbalath,
"I did know that an allegation had been made against JP, but I didn't know who had made it."
He promised to share her allegations with the Church National Safeguarding Team
to ensure behaviours like this are properly dealt with and learned from.
In most areas of life, if you were a head teacher of a secondary school or a consultant in a hospital, there is no doubt that the person against whom these allegations have been made would be stood down in a neutral way whilst they were investigated and dealt with. The Church may say that they have investigated these allegations, they think it's all fine, but at no point in that process did they choose to step John Perumbalath back from his responsibilities.
It's great to have the privilege of delivering my first presidential address to Liverpool.
Bishop John's career continued seemingly unchecked. Feeling let down by the Church, the woman we've spoken to decided to go to the police, making a statement in November 2023. Extraordinarily, the following March, Bishop John was interviewed voluntarily but under caution. The police took no further action because of insufficient evidence. The Church has funded therapy for the woman. She says Archbishop Stephen has offered an apology, but none has so far been forthcoming.
The reflection of God's glory.
Archbishop Stephen has already faced multiple calls to quit over the way he handled past abuse cases. His critics say this is the final straw.
It could well be another instance of a church cover-up. I think one of the difficulties at the heart of the top of our church is that there is a protectionist culture between bishops in relation to bishops' behaviour. And lots of us know that that happens all the time. If this was an ordinary clergy person, they would be treated in a very different way, I think.
The Church seems to fail to deal with these situations consistently, perhaps because they don't have the processes in place, perhaps because they can't believe that they have alleged offenders like this working in their midst.
To this day, John Perumbalath remains a bishop and is currently awaiting a seat in the House of Lords. Married to a maths teacher, he is one of just 2 bishops sitting on a commission overseeing clergy discipline. Senior members of the synod told us they were appalled and wanted him to face up to his own shortcomings. Tonight, the Bishop of Liverpool told us, "I have consistently denied the allegations made against me by both complainants. I have complied with any investigation from the National Safeguarding Team. Whilst I don't believe I have done anything wrong, I have taken seriously the lessons learned through this process, addressing how my actions can be perceived by others. I will comply with any investigation deemed necessary. I take safeguarding very seriously." A Church of England spokesperson said the complaint was made after Bishop John had legally become Bishop of Liverpool. The National Safeguarding Team concluded there were no ongoing safeguarding concerns, but a learning outcome was identified with which the bishop fully engaged. The information from the second complainant was assessed not to be a safeguarding matter, but a matter of alleged misconduct. Pastoral support has been provided throughout for the second complainant and is ongoing. The second complainant did not bring a clergy discipline measure complaint within the 1-year deadline. She later applied for permission to bring it after the deadline, which the Archbishop of York fully supported. However, this was refused by an independent judge, the Deputy President of Tribunals. Well, the Right Reverend Rose Hudson-Wilkin, Bishop of Dover, joins me now from Highley in Hertfordshire, where she's been attending a bishop's away day. Bishop Rose, should a bishop accused of sexually assaulting one woman and sexually harassing another bishop be sacked?
Well, we live in a world where we have proper processes, and we don't just sack someone when there is an allegation. Now, these are serious allegations, let's be clear about that, but there are proper processes to be followed. And as far as I'm aware, there were investigations carried out by a professional body in the form of the National Safeguarding Team.
But the claim here is that those processes are failing the victims repeatedly. And when a bishop, you know, a senior person in the church, makes a complaint and is told that that complaint can't be taken forward because more than a year has elapsed since the incident, the alleged incident occurred, how is anyone who has these claims to get justice in the church if that is how people are dealt with?
You know, as I say, there are processes to be followed. I know for a fact that the Archbishop of York has instructed a barrister to look at the decisions that's been made and the actions taken in order to see if anything has been missed and also to suggest further possible ways forward. We have got to follow processes. We cannot just behave in a way that, you know, like a sort of a lynch mob. We can't do that.
But do you believe the victims, including one of your colleagues, a bishop, a fellow bishop?
It's not about whether I believe the victims. The victims who come forward and make allegations, they are assessed in terms of the investigations are done, and they're done by a professional body.
But is that professional body fit for purpose? That's my point.
Well, the barrister that has been instructed will let us know that as a church. And it is my hope that when that barrister comes back with their report, that we will act on it immediately.
Right. Well, the Archbishop of York, who is currently leading the Church of England after the resignation of Justin Welby, he knew of the sexual assault allegations against the Bishop of Liverpool before his enthronement, which was in April 2023. So he knew of that, and yet the enthronement went ahead. Was that appropriate?
But by then, according to your report, he had an investigation had been carried out, and he was not found guilty, as it were.
Well, he was subsequently investigated by the police, interviewed under caution. So, you know,
Indeed.
Things had not really quite played out. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it, for a serving senior bishop to be interviewed under caution, which means he's treated as a potential criminal suspect by police.
But doesn't that then tell you that there is no cover-up and no one is hiding anyone?
Well, no
And
one
that,
knew about
you
any
know,
of this until we broadcast it tonight. Is that right? Or would it not have been more transparent to publish these claims, to support the victims, and to make a statement at that point? It's had to be dragged out of you.
Well, you know, the church has processes that it follows. Now, I'm not sure why it has been left for you to bring this up as a story, as a headline. When these matters are being investigated,
Right.
it is treated confidentially.
Bishop Rose, I believe the Bishop of Liverpool is with you at your away day. Will you be offering him your support?
The Bishop of Liverpool, I can tell you, is not here.
So has he been disinvited? Because all bishops were invited, weren't they?
The Bishop of Liverpool is a grown adult and would have made his decision as to whether or not he is going to attend.
Bishop Rose Hudson-Wilkin, thank you very much for joining us. Well, joining me now from Cambridge is the Reverend Charlie Bell, who's a fellow at Girton College and a member of the General Synod. Charlie Bell, I don't know whether you were able to hear any of my report, but I wondered first if I could get your reaction to the claims against the Bishop of Liverpool.
It's hard to know what to say. It just seems to be yet another in a litany of just appalling stories coming out of our church. And when is this going to end? I'm sad, I'm shocked, I feel deeply sorry on behalf of the church, and frankly, I just feel ashamed. I just don't understand how this can keep happening time and time again.
And yet you heard from Bishop Rose there. She says processes were followed. What do you make of that?
If processes were followed and yet Channel 4 is now bringing this forward, and we're now hearing about it as a matter of concern, clearly those processes are not fit for purpose. And we keep hearing there's going to be, yet more reviews, and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. And we keep being told by the church there's no more to come out. There clearly is. There's clearly more to come out. And those of us who are just trying to get on with the job of being priests are pretty fed up, to be honest, with the fact that the central bodies in our church seem to be determined not to get this right.
Do you feel let down by the Archbishop himself? Do you think he should quit?
You know, one thing I do agree with Bishop Rose is, calling for resignations is not always the most helpful thing. But on the other hand, I really don't see how the Archbishop of York now will have the confidence of the church. He's called to lead us in a time where we're already facing a failure of confidence in leadership. I really, really struggle to see how this is now recoverable from. And frankly, I really don't think it should be about personalities. It should be about forming a church that has the confidence of those who have faced abuse, both historically, but we're seeing increasingly in the contemporary church.
So both the Bishop of Liverpool and the Archbishop of York, in your view, should consider their positions tonight?
Well, to be honest, I'm not clear that there's been any, proper action that's been taken about these allegations. I don't know, because we don't know any of these things. All we ever do is find out about them on the news, and that feels to me not to be the way that the church should be running itself. Right. So, for me, I think at the very least, there needs to be a very clear, outlined programme that shows us either that process has been followed, or indeed people need to step back whilst the appropriate process is put in place. For those of us we get on with the job day after day after day, and we're just finding about it in the same way that people watching your programme are.
What's been put forward to me is by sort of senior people within the church is that the Archbishop can't resign because it would literally collapse the church. How deep do you think the crisis in the church is tonight?
Oh, I think we're in crisis. I think we've been in crisis for some time. We've been an anxious church for a long period of time, worries about numbers and all the rest of it. But this abuse scandal just keeps on going, and I don't have very much belief that it will stop. And so I don't know why people who are watching your programme would think it's going to stop. We need leadership, and leadership means sometimes taking responsibility, and sometimes it means, frankly, stepping back if there's no longer confidence. It's not about blame. It's actually about having someone who can lead us through this process, or indeed a house of bishops who can lead us through this process and retain the confidence not only of the clergy, not only of the people that come through our doors, but of those who have survived abuse and indeed of the general public.
Reverend Charlie Bell, thank you very much for joining us.